Hi, Ron Stokes, former Ohio State basketball player. Coach Machock, you're more than just a coach. You were someone that impacted people around you, and it was more than just basketball. From the very first moment I met you, I knew that it was more than that. You impacted me in so many different ways. From the very first moment that I met you when you were recruiting my teammate Troy Taylor at Camp McKinley, you would come and watch Troy play, but after those games you would also talk to me, and that meant a whole lot to me. And I'll never forget the time where I came down to Ohio State and you were recruiting, Ohio State was recruiting me, and my mom and dad came down, and you were the lead coach in my recruitment, and you treated me and my family like royalty, and I really, really appreciate that. We'll never forget those moments. Afterwards, you and Dottie took me out to play golf, and it was more about just basketball. It was about life lessons, and you encouraged me, and I'll never forget also you told me I could do anything I wanted if I put my mind to it, and that helped me pursue my business career that I have today. And last but not least, as a broadcaster, I knew you had done it many, many years down in Cincinnati, and I was starting out at Ohio State, and I would call you from time to time, and you would give me just pearls of wisdom of how to ask questions and how to interact with coaches and how to study the game. And that was very, very appreciative. And we'll miss you, but we will never forget you. To Dottie, to Bob, Sandy, and Mindy, heartfelt wish of strength through this time of sorrow. I wish you the very best. Coach, I love you. God bless you.
I'm so happy that I'm able to speak about my buddy Chuck Machock. I'm doing a road game and I'm not going to be home, and this is a very important day for not only the Machock family but all of Ohio. So to be part of it is very special. I met Chuck long time ago when I was doing radio for Xavier, and I asked him for some help, and he was so gracious and humble with his time. I knew that this is a guy that I wanted to get to know better. So every time we saw each other, we spoke about many things. Basketball was probably the last thing on the list of things to talk about, but it was family and friends, and when Coach Huggins left, how's Coach Huggins doing, and all the different assistants and players that played for him. Chuck Machock was very special. The state of Ohio, and specifically the University of Cincinnati, should be very proud that he is somebody that has crossed in the paths of the Buckeyes and the Bearcats, or as Coach Machock used to say, the Cats. When you walk in a room, you see Chuck Machock, he's the guy you want to go talk to because he'll put a smile on your face. Everybody wanted to talk to Chuck. He had great stories, but they weren't about him. They were about other things. Very humble. And in the last several years, I would talk to his really good friend Dan Horde and ask him, is it okay to call? Do you think it's okay to talk to him and bother him? And Dan would smile and said he'd love to hear from you. So, I know when I go to bed tonight, I know the sun's going to come up tomorrow. But losing Chuck Machock, I know that when that sun does come up tomorrow, it's just not going to be as bright as it was when he was still here. Coach, I miss you. I love you. And go Cats.
Good evening. I've been asked to say a few words about Chuck, but I'm sure I'd have a hard time narrowing it down to a few words. Everybody in the gym tonight probably has a story about him. Whether you've known him for 45 minutes or 45 years, you have a story, something to tell about Chuck. Three things I remember about Chuck. When he met you, he made you feel welcome, whether it was in the gym for the first time or bringing you into his house. He made you feel welcome. During your conversation and stay with him, he made you feel important. He asked you for your input. He wanted to hear your side. And then at the end, when you were saying goodbye, he really felt appreciated for the time you spent or the time you took to make a phone call to give him a call. He was very proud of the family that he and Dottie put together. He was extremely proud of the grandkids. Whether he was telling you a story about how somebody was following through on their free throw, the girls up in Connecticut, to Mitchell throwing a pass for a first down in Capitol. My story about Chuck is 2 years ago the phone rings. And he says, Hearn, what are you doing? I said, I'm walking to the first tee box. I said, I'm in Youngstown. I'm going to play golf with some high school buddies. It's my birthday today. He said, yeah, happy birthday. He said, I want to take you to lunch tomorrow. He said, you call me tonight, pick a place halfway between Youngstown and Cincinnati, and we'll meet for dinner. He says, and I'm buying, goddammit. I said, you're buying? I'll leave right now. But anyways, I found a place halfway between Youngstown and Cincinnati, was on Route 61. It's called Farmstead. So Charlie says, let's go at 1 o'clock. We'll let the lunch hour rush get by. He says, we can pick a booth in a corner and we chat for a couple hours. I said, okay, that's fine. So I said, we'll meet at 1 o'clock at Farmstead. Great. So I'm there, pull in. There's 2 cars there. I don't see Charlie's car. Around the corner, I hear the wheels squeeching. Here he comes, he pulls up. He goes, a fine place you picked. He goes, there's only 2 cars here. I said, well, you said you wanted the lunch crowd to clear out. I said, they certainly cleared out. He said, listen, Hearn, there's 2 cars here. One is probably the cook's, and that one over there, he said, that car, it's got 2 flat tires. It hasn't moved in 5 years. I said, well, let's go in. Maybe they're not even open. He said, they could have called this place Cornstead, not Farmstead. He said, there's nothing else here but cornfields. So we go in there. We get 2 sandwiches. And he tells the lady, I want the check. He said, but before that, I want 2 slices of apple pie and 2 ice creams on top, vanilla. So we eat. He gets the bill, and he goes, here, I'll leave the tip. I said, no, I'll leave the tip. He said, I want to leave the tip. It's your birthday. I said, he leaves the tip. He said, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right out. I'll meet you right over there at the door. I said, fine. So I'm waiting. He doesn't come. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. He comes out. He said, Hearn, where the hell were you? I said, what do you mean? You told me to wait here at the door for you. He said, I went into the bathroom. The guy was cleaning in there. He said, so I had to go in the stall. He said, I went in the stall. The door closed behind me. I got locked in. I said, why did you have the guy, the cleaning guy, why didn't you have him help you out? Well, he left. He moved on to the next bathroom. I said, you told me to wait here. I'm waiting here. I said, Charlie, listen, if your hair gets messed up, I'll wipe your hair. If your nose is running, I'll wipe your nose. If some of that apple pie and ice cream gets on your chin, I'll wipe that off. I said, but I'm not going in the bathroom looking for you. I'll wait right here. But anyways, Charlie, it's been a great run. You've been a great friend. Everybody's probably going to go out and have some of that nasty Cincinnati chili. There's only one way I'm going to celebrate your life, and that's right here. Oh, somebody better guard Dottie's ears, because we're going to have a grilled bologna sandwich, and yes, Dottie, it's low-cal. It's the best celebration I could ever have for you, Charlie. Thank you.
First, let me say hello to everybody in Cincinnati. We're all here to celebrate Coach Machock and the great person that he was, and I'm sure there's all kind of funny stories. But there was no truer Bearcat over the last 30-plus years. And Chuck's love and his dedication for UC came through a lot. And we all know that, but my personal story with it, many people don't know, even though you were there to witness it. But, it was a tough time in 2006. And for about 5 years, from 06 to 11, Coach Machock put his arm around me. And that meant a lot to me. In many ways, put his arm around the program. A lot of change in the program, a lot of dissension in the program. And he stuck with the program. And it showed his true character. Not just what he did for me personally that I can't even express, to be loyal to me as a young coach, following in the footsteps of his best friend, and everything that went around and went on with that. It wasn't easy for any of us. But Chuck's the one guy that did it with a smile, and he did it with a laugh. And we had many talks on many road trips. many road trips, and lot of food, and a lot of food that I was happy to pay for, because I didn't want to eat hot dogs. But Coach, he showed his true character through all of that. You know, to be in the situation that we were all in a very tough time for our program. And I don't think people realize how much he helped me, and in doing so, he helped the program. But I think the thing that, you know, if there's players there today, nobody helped guys keep their head up, put their arm around guys, keep fighting big fellas. He's a great big man coach. You know, people don't even know. Back in 2000, and I spent the summer with him, that whole summer. Nobody knows it. He came up to Lawrence Hall, and we worked on coaching big men, what it was like to coach big men. He obviously is a 5'7" guy. I had never really done that, and I made the transition, and it made me a better coach. And obviously he left work, came to UC. We watched film together. Like I said, we're in Lawrence Hall together. And he did it all because he obviously, you know, we all know Chuck's a great guy, and he just wanted to help other people. And I think we can all learn from something, including myself. You know, I've thought a lot about what's happened in Coach Machock's passing. And Chuck always made it about other people. It was never about him. Never about him. He wanted no credit. The man never wanted any credit for anything that he ever did for other people. He just wanted to help everybody. And that's why players gravitated so much to Coach Machock. They gravitated toward him because they knew, hey, Chuck just wants to help me. Whether it was Sean Kilpatrick and all the guys that he was around when I was the head coach, they loved him. They truly loved him because he didn't do anything but try to help them and keep their head up. So hello to everybody back in Cincinnati, and it's a great day to celebrate Chuck, and just wanted to share a few of my stories. And he loved the Bearcats more than anybody, and he helped us through a really, really tough time during my period, and his memory will always be with me. Take care, guys.
I'm Mike Klein, and I played basketball at The Ohio State University from 1976 to 1979. My second year there, Coach Eldon Miller came in as head coach, and he brought an assistant coach by the name of Chuck Machock. And Chuck was a unique individual. He was very tough-minded, taught toughness, taught attention to detail, but always had this unique quality to somehow in the end make it fun. And just the guy that I've kept in touch with over the years. I've listened to him on the University of Cincinnati Bearcats color commentating, and played golf with him many times. But getting back to the basketball, he was just a guy that you could depend on when you needed somebody to talk to. Always talked about his experiences in life, and seemed to always be able to relate those to your experiences in life. But as other assistant coaches when I was there were Coach Huggins and Coach Bob Faulkner, and I think they would tell you the same thing, that their experiences with Chuck Machock over the years were tremendous. He always had something uniquely funny to say, and just a guy that I myself am going to miss dearly. If nothing else, just to give him a call and talk to him about what's going on in our lives. And he was a guy that just over the years meant a lot to me.
Good evening. Sorry that I can't be there for Chuck's celebration of life, and I certainly hope it's a celebration because that's what Chuck would have wanted. He was a fun-loving guy, and he'd certainly want all of his friends, family to celebrate his life, and it was some life to celebrate. I also think it's very cool that this event is being held on campus in the Fifth Third Arena in a building where Chuck spent many hours and lived out one of his life's passions, and that was his love of UC basketball. I met Chuck over 50 years ago when I was playing at the University of Akron, and Chuck was our assistant coach. Over those 50 years, Chuck has been unbelievably supportive and helpful to me, both personally and professionally. Also, over those 50 years, I have a ton of Chuck Machock stories, which I'm sure you'd like to hear, but this is just a one-night event and doesn't span the weekend, or for that matter, the entire week. I'd just like to say three things to Dottie and their children, Bobby, Sandy, and Mindy, is that you will remain in my thoughts. And secondly, due to Chuck's love of food and restaurants, whenever I go to Luigi's in Akron, I will remember Chuck. And also, whenever I hear his name or see it in print, it'll bring a smile to my face. Chuck was certainly a character, and I mean that in the nicest sense of the word, and he was a one-of-a-kind person. He will definitely be missed.
Good evening, everybody. Rex Fannin here, and especially to you, Charlie. I met Chuck in the middle 80s, working at the same investment firm, and I do believe that people fall into your lives for a reason. Chuck Machock fell into mine for laughter. Reminds me of a story only he and I, so maybe forgive me because it might not be funny to you guys, but we were at River Downs one Friday afternoon, and I'd bet $20 on a horse. Charlie bet his customary $2 to win, and our horse was flying down the stretch right alongside another horse, and as it got to the wire, we couldn't tell who won. And so we knew his photo finish, and a lady, nice lady sitting right beside us in the clubhouse, reaches over and says, "I believe you guys got bobbed." And having been there in the moment, Charlie just fell out of his chair laughing. I had tears in my eyes from laughing at Charlie and at the lady. So from that day forward, mainly on a golf course, when we got a bad hop or a putt didn't go in that we thought should have, we just looked at each other and said, "You got bobbed." So it was just one of those wonderful moments that he and I shared for a long, long time. So I'd like to say thank you to Billy Posey for allowing me to say a few words, and good night all.
Just wanted to say, Chuck, you're going to be truly missed, man. You're what a true Bearcat is, man. Thank you for everything you've done over my career and throughout my life and helping me stay a Bearcat. When old Big Head was running me, I wanted to quit. I'd come to the side and talk to you some, and you just be like, "Man, just hang in there, kid." Thank you, man, for everything. Love you always, man. Go Bearcats.
I didn't talk about Chuck in 1 minute. Chuck was a great guy. I was fortunate enough to be a point guard for Chuck, and Chuck loved basketball. There's three things I think about when I think about Chuck and the recruiting process going through with Chuck. Chuck's about friendships, experiences, and basketball. Chuck was always about making friends and knowing the right people and befriending everyone. Whoever it was, Chuck treated you like you were gold. Also, Chuck was about experiences. He gave us as players experiences. No matter what city we went to, Chuck made sure we did something or experienced something other than basketball. I remember we were in New Orleans and we were playing Nickel State, and Chuck made sure that we stayed on Bourbon Street. When drove 45 minutes to an hour to the game, Chuck made sure we tried crayfish. We had a big bucket of crayfish that Chuck made sure we all experienced, as most of us from the north. Also, Chuck was about experiences. We would go to Chuck's house and they had a fishbowl, and a fishbowl was full of matchboxes that he and Dottie had collected from their many travels. So Chuck would have one of us pick out a matchbox, and he would have a story for us about each one of those matchboxes. If y'all know Chuck like I do, y'all know he could tell a good story. Chuck, we love you, we miss you, and thanks for all the memories.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I can't be there in person with you tonight as you gather to celebrate the life of Chuck Machock, but I am grateful that I get a chance to share a few words with you on this night of celebrating his life. But before I do that, I would like to express my condolences to Dottie and Sandy and Bob and Mindy, to Emily, Kaylee, and Mitchell, to Chuck's siblings and other extended family gathered there, as well as to the network of friends and former players who have come to celebrate the memory of Chuck's life, a life that was well lived. I encountered Chuck over 40 years ago as a teenager when he recruited me to play basketball at Ohio State. For 3 years, he was my assistant coach. But it was after I was done playing that our relationship really went to another level as friends. When I think about Chuck, man, it's hard not to smile, hard not to laugh, because he was fun to be around and funny in his humor, great care for people. I can recall my parents really enjoying his company as he was recruiting me, and even my siblings liked him. And it was that kind of infectious enthusiasm and zest for life and energy that impacted people, and I'm one of those folks. He always made me feel better whenever I talked to him, whenever I was with him. Now, he was tough, in addition to being caring and compassionate, but it was always from a place of love. And I so appreciate and cherish that as I think about the times I had with Chuck, first as him being my assistant coach, and then in conversations and interactions as I went from former player to husband and father. I thank God for his friendship. I thank God for his life and his family. And I trust that you, as I feel, will cherish the memories that are with us, even in his absence. God bless you, Chuck. Love you, man, and thank God for your influence on my life and the way you lived yours.
Hi, this is Paul KEELS of the Ohio State Radio Network. Proud to be part of this evening's celebration of Chuck Machock's life. And while it's a big hole in many lives that he's no longer with us, what helps us get through times like this, it certainly seems to be, is the great memories and the great laughs that we have. And with Chuck, there's no shortage of them. Most recently, when Chuck and Dottie a couple of years ago came to a game at Ohio State, former head coach Eldon Miller was here, and a bunch of Eldon's former assistants like Chuck and former players were all there. And it was a great thing to see not only Chuck, but everybody else connected. The great joy they had of all being together. That ties into the fact that my partner on radio, Ron Stokes, was recruited to Ohio State by Chuck Machock. I know that in Ron's life, that has meant a great deal, and Chuck always loved the connection that he had with Ron and Troy Taylor, the two gentlemen that he recruited from Canton McKinley High School. My association with Chuck began when he joined HUG's staff at the University of Cincinnati in 1989, and for 3 years was in the limited assistant coaching position that was eventually eliminated. But when Chuck was on the sideline, it was another version of HUGS, especially as far as the great appreciation and the great affection that they showed for the officials that were working in the game. When that position was eliminated, Chuck moved to radio, and I was fortunate for 4 years to sit alongside him and was really able to see the coming of what Dan Horde got to experience, and that was Chuck being removed from a basketball game. Chuck's back and forth with the officials was legendary. Some would say that it was maybe even volcanic. But one thing that you always knew, he had respect for the hard work that the officials put into the game. He had even more respect for the work put in by the players, many of whom he got to know, that he got to work with, and in his way helped them try and improve at their game. The thing I'll always remember is that Chuck was always in a great mood when he sat down to sit there for a radio broadcast. And all of the great places we got to go, whether it was Boise, Idaho, whether it was the Rainbow Classic in Hawaii, and some of those other garden spots from the Metro Conference and Conference USA, like Hattiesburg, Mississippi, so many of these other wonderful spots, they were all made that much more enjoyable because of the time you got to spend with Chuck and the thrill that he had being around this basketball program. It was great to be able to have him as part of my life. The memories, well, they will continue to go on forever and ever. But Chuck Machock was a guy that made everybody enjoy what they were doing because he enjoyed it. Yes, we'll miss him a great deal, but we all had so many wonderful times because we were around him. To Dottie, to Sandy, to Bob and Mindy, certainly this is a difficult time, losing somebody so important in your life. But hopefully it helps you to know that he had his way of being important in so many others.
I'm Joe Sunderman along with Byron Larkin, and I just want to say how much we enjoyed Chuck Machock every time we got to meet him. What a kind, wonderful man. And I know he would go the extra mile for you. I had an opportunity one time to invite him over to Western Hills for an early morning breakfast at 7 a.m. in the morning. They said, could you bring Chuck Machock over? And I said, I'll try. I called him up, and he jumped at the opportunity, got up early, traveled across town, and when he walked into the room, it was like a bright light coming on, and we always enjoyed our time with Chuck. Great to listen to, always brought humor, and you always learned something when you heard Chuck on the radio talking about a basketball game.
In my experience with Chuck, he was always just a pleasant, kind person. And first time I met him, I didn't know him very well. I knew he was a UC guy, I was a Xavier guy. I thought it was going to be a little adversarial, and it was the exact opposite. You know, Chuck just reached out his hand and invited me to go play golf, and just was really a pleasant, fun, nurturing kind of person. Someone we'll surely miss. I have nothing but fond memories of Chuck. He was one of the best. I also learned something from Chuck. I didn't know that you can actually be thrown out of a basketball game by broadcasting on the radio, so I appreciate Chuck for teaching me that lesson as well.
Chuck, I miss your big personality, your smiling disposition, and the help you always gave me off the record in trying to figure out Bob Huggins, which is no easy task. Take care, my friend. Miss you already.
Upon receiving the text from Tom Gregory, a dear friend to both Chuck and myself, of Chuck's passing, I was deeply saddened. Chuck was a good friend, a guy that welcomed me with open arms into the Bearcat basketball family back in 2001. I will cherish the memories of he and I and Hugs and many others sitting around, sharing a cigar, having a laugh, talking ball. Chuck could speak to Hugs not like many could. He was a loyal friend, a guy that I could always count on to give me a call after a big win or a tough loss during my time, not only at UC, but at Ole Miss. We stayed in communication. Chuck was very intentional, and I will miss those conversations. I still keep this picture in my home office of Chuck and I and Dan Horde doing the radio show, always off script, always entertaining. I rest better today knowing that heaven is a livelier place because Chuck's there. He'll certainly be missed.
My first encounter with Chuck was back in 1989 at Bob Huggins' first practice as UC's head coach. I was covering the Bearcats for the Cincinnati Post. Chuck, then a volunteer coach, was at the south end of Shoemaker Center working with the big men. You could hear his voice echoing through the new arena like a foghorn as he demanded that Lavertus Robinson, Keith Starks, and the other big men use the proper footwork around the basket. Some of the players were getting frustrated. Apparently they'd never had to worry about footwork before. They had just played, but there was a new era, and Chuck was adamant. If you were going to play for him, you were going to play the game the right way. Hug stood along the sideline and smiled knowingly. Through the years, Chuck made UC fans laugh with his infectious personality, sense of humor, and his zest for life. But basketball was serious business for him. He had his standards, and he refused to accept anything less. It's one reason why the Bearcats won as much as they did in those early years, and why Hugs valued having him on his staff. Over the years, I spent a lot of time around Chuck and was amazed at how much UC fans had come to love him as a person. He was everyone's friend.
Hi, my name is Darren Savino, former UC Bearcat assistant. Want to give my deepest condolences to Chuck Machock's family and friends. And in my 9 years at UC, I got to know Chuck really well and appreciate his love for food, his positivity towards the team and the coaches. And I'm sure everyone's going to really miss Chuck at the UC games. Rest in peace, my friend.
Line guys, Corey Blunt, Jeff Scott, Mike Reichenegger, Terry Nelson, Eric Martin. He was critical to our success because he was there every single day, paid attention to detail, was so good. And Chuck was touching everybody that he came in contact with in a positive way. And I'll always remember Chuck, and he was a vital and a very important part in my life. And whenever I think of him, before, now, and in the future, he always makes me smile because he was my friend. And he was a friend to everybody he touched, and he affected every player and coach's life in a positive way that he touched. And so this is my tribute to my friend, Chuck Machock.
My name is Alex Meacham. I played basketball for the Bearcats 1997 through 1999 for the legendary coach, Bob Huggins. I was fortunate enough to get to know my good friend, Chuck Machock. See, I was a walk-on, and walk-ons are kind of like the low man on the totem pole, but Chuck didn't care. He treated everyone the same. He didn't care if you were the walk-on, the manager, or Kenyon Martin. He treated everybody the same. We would take time and talk before games, pre-game meal, on the bus, airplane rides. And the one thing I take away from Chuck was just how he treated people. And I remember that, just everyone you meet, treating them as if they're the same. So Chuck, I appreciated you. You were a great friend. You were a great Bearcat, and we love you.